It is being reported right now from a UN nuclear watchdog group that Iran is enriching uranium near weapons grade levels. Now, of course, that's all going to be talk, and no one's ever going to do anything about that. But the question is whether Israel will unilaterally strike Iran's nuclear facilities in order to prevent Iran from getting to a nuclear weapons grade type bomb. Now, I've heard this warning for many, many years, but if they get to the point to where they do get close and that Israel is really worried about that, then I believe Israel will attack them. I heard a commentator say that even though the reports indicate that Iran is getting closer, if Israel really believed that they were in danger, they would have already attacked. And frankly, that does make a lot of sense to me. So we have to take a lot of these reports with a grain of salt. Certainly, I would say that Iran is close to a nuclear weapon, but whether they can harness that to a missile is unknown. And frankly, that's probably the only thing that keeps Israel from attacking them. Now, here's the biggest report I believe that is prophetic, and that is the International Court of Justice, which is basically part of the UN, a few days ago said that Israel must halt all attacks against Rafah, and it put out an arrest warrant on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and frankly declaring him as a war criminal. Now, of course, that holds very little, if no weight in the real world, although some nations have declared that if given the opportunity, they would arrest President or Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, well, of course, Israel did the right thing. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu went forward with the Rafah ops. But in the process of this war, of course, accidents do happen, and that's exactly what happened. Multiple civilian casualties have died in the process of attacks. And of course, now the world is outraged over Israel's attack against Rafah, even though they know what happened on October 7th. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has apologized to the people of Palestine and also to the world. But as you know, that's not going to be enough. In fact, this is really right up Bible prophecy's alley. It says in Zechariah 12:3 that the whole world at one point in the last days would come against Israel. But God has said that whoever comes against Israel will be ground to powder. In other words, he'll defeat them soundly. So in these last days, it's not surprising that the whole world is coming against Israel. In fact, it wouldn't shock me a bit if the United States completely turns its back on Israel and votes against Israel at the UN, or at the very least allows a vote to go through. So as the friendships with Israel are dwindling, many countries are siding with the Palestinians, and in doing so with Hamas, and in which several European Union nations such as Spain and Ireland, and there are others also that are considering, but these two nations have declared and recognized a Palestinian state. And you can bet there'll be others that'll jump on this bandwagon after this tragic accident that actually probably wasn't an accident. I'm sure that Hamas planned this completely. It's all part of their plan to bring world condemnation upon Israel. And as I've said, the Bible is very clear that that would be the temperature of the last days, that the whole world will come against Israel. And you can bet that the United States is probably around the corner from doing that. But I think what's going to happen is that there will be an outcry, and the United States will probably declare that Israel is going to have to come to some type of a peace table or negotiating table. And in the end, a Palestinian state will be created. Under what conditions, it's hard to say. But I believe there will be incentives on both sides that will be given. But in the end, I believe a 7-year peace agreement, which will be the start of the tribulation period, will be created. Now, how far that's down the road, I don't know. Of course, the rapture of the church will have to come first. But once that takes place, that's when this world will go from a natural to a supernatural world. Before that takes place, we have a number of different converging signs that must take place before the tribulation begins. One being, of course, wars and rumors of wars. We know that the world is on fire right now. One place that the United States and others are beginning to see signs that there may be an attack is China. China seems to be getting ready to invade Taiwan, and many believe it's going to be soon. Of course, the others are earthquakes, and there are earthquakes happening multiple times every day, and they are throughout the world. And of course, we have pestilence that are going on almost continuously right now. Humans are starting to catch bird flu. So that's something you want to keep your eyes on. But the one thing that still isn't catching on a global scale, I believe, is famine. I'm still looking for that. But as I've said many times, that can happen after the rapture takes place and probably closer toward the tribulation period. And here's something on a side note. It says that the Knesset is about ready to vote on declaring the UN or Uranda a terrorist organization, which they should be, because virtually all of the employees of that organization in the Gaza Strip are terrorists. You know, as we know, Israel has no friends in the UN as far as the organization is concerned, and very few as nations. And that number is dwindling day by day. But I'd keep my eyes on where this global attack against Israel is headed, because it's going to get a lot rougher because of the fact that the International Court told them to halt. They refused, and now many civilians have supposedly been killed. But I certainly wouldn't rule out the fact that Hamas probably put these civilians in harm's way as normal. They've been using them as human shields the whole time. And I suspect that this is just another example of that, as the investigation into this will probably bear when it's all complete. You know, much of this information is broadcast before I send out a video on Gitter. Again, I would become a Gitter member of mine. Just download the app, look up the Calvary Prophecy Report or Terry Malone, or both. Once you find it, get on my Gitter account by following. And not only will you get daily briefings and different comments and articles from me, but you'll also be notified when I do put out a video. So I hope you'll do that. Of course, if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Don't put that off. One day, this will be my last video. And when I say that, I mean that the rapture of the church will take place, and you will be left behind to go through the most horrible time period the world has ever known. But in order to avoid that, you need to come to the Lord and ask Him to save you. And I hope you'll do that today. And of course, if you do not have a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide, I would suggest that you get it. Get it in the hands of every lost loved one that you have, friends and others. I would say that this book is going to end up saving a lot of people's lives, bringing them to the Lord, but also getting them through the tribulation period. So I hope you'll get this book, get it in the hands of your friends, your loved ones, and I think you'll be happy that you did. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.